Hi, this is Dave Orsborn. On today's St. Gabriel Café, we invited Dr. Michael Parker into the cafe to share his experiences in hiking the Camino. Unfortunately, we had a technical issue with the recording, and I can only bring you the final 30 minutes of the show. To begin the show, Katie, Mike, and I reflected on the first reading from the Mass, which is from the Song of Songs, chapter 3, verses 1 to 4. This passage was an excellent introduction to our conversation. From the Song of Songs, chapter 3, the bride says, "On my bed at night I sought him, whom my heart loves. I sought him, but I did not find him. I will rise then and go about the city. In the streets and crossings I will seek him whom my heart loves. I sought him, but I did not find him. The watchmen came upon me as they made their rounds of the city. Have you seen him whom my heart loves? I had hardly left them when I found him whom my heart loves." So we're going to pick up the conversation with about 30 minutes left in the cafe. Enjoy.
Anything within my marriage, what I could do to make it better, to try all of those different things. And so I went with one intention, but that intention changed as I walked along and as I met other people. And there were other people too who on the journey may have started off with what they thought was their intention, but they got into a deeper introspection about what that was about, and it may have changed them a little bit. And so the Camino really speaks to you along the way, but this is kind of like discernment. When you're on this 34-day journey or 30-day journey, however long you want to take it, you're most of the time I was walking alone, probably 50% of the time. You're just alone with your thoughts and your prayers, and you just allow God to speak to you as to what he wants to have happen in your life.
So, Dr. Parker, you started with one intention. You were given a new intention, which is so cool that you finished the Camino then on your anniversary. That was so Holy Spirit inspired. Did your original intention go unresolved, or does it all get sort of...
They all tie together. Mm-hmm. A lot of the things that happened earlier in my life deeply affected my marriage. And it affected my relationship with my children. And so working through that process was the same. But it was the outcome that was a little bit different than what I expected.
Well, Mike, is it fair to say your journey, the Camino journey, started long before you put your first step on the trail?
Sure, it does. But I mean, first you have that inspiration. Mm-hmm. Why would I want to go walk 500 miles in the middle of nowhere, so to speak, and with people I don't even know? Mm-hmm. And my inspiration came from Father Ambrose Eckinger at St. Patrick's when he gave a homily on this, probably about 15 or so years ago, probably longer. And I've wanted to walk it ever since. And then, of course, everybody has the inspiration from the movies, The Way or The Way, My Way, whatever it is, or various books to go and walk the Camino. But then you start the planning phases and you get into it and you're like, oh, really, do I really want to do this? But it is a calling, and if you feel called to it, discern that call, and don't be afraid to take that step to go. You don't have to do it the way I did. Everyone sets up their own Camino, and you can do it in multiple stages over multiple years if you want to do the whole route, or you can just do a short route. Mm-hmm. But find out what you're being called to do and why you're being called to be there, and then don't be afraid to take that first step. It's about putting that first step on the trail and just taking the next step after that.
We're with Dr. Michael Parker today here in the St. Gabriel Café talking about his recent pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago de Compostela. All those words, yes. You said if you hear the call, discern that call. So I would love to walk the Camino, but at this point, I would just love to walk the Camino, right? I don't know that I've been called to walk the Camino. So what's the difference? I don't know if you can answer this. What's the difference between me, just like, oh, that would be awesome to walk the Camino, to me, Katie, you are called to walk the Camino?
Well, I think your first statement is your call.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to walk the Camino. There's something buried within that statement. And that's what you have to discern. Why would you love to walk the Camino? Is it that you want to be out in nature and see the beauty of God's creation while you're walking? Is it to have that sense of pilgrimage where you're looking for a deeper spiritual relationship with Jesus Christ? Is it that you want to do it to be a part of something, to make new friends, to explore a different part of the world, to get yourself deeper into a culture? It's that first inspiration that is the call. Now you've got to dig deeper and find out, what is it I'm being called to do through this? And you may not find that out till you leave.
Well, I would imagine, Mike, that there's as many reasons as there are people hiking. As you were saying, there's some people are probably walking away from something and others are walking towards something. So your reason could very well be completely different from Katie's reason. That's great. I mean, that's the way the Lord works.
One of the things you say a lot to people is when they're trying to decide what to do is, it's your Camino. I can never make it your Camino. I can help you along the journey, but I can't do anything to make it less than yours. And I've said this to people who have asked me if I would go back and do it again and if I would take other people with me. And I always come down to this. I will go with you, but I'm not going to tell you when to stop, where to go, this or that. If we want to stay together, it will be, we'll start here, we'll finish here. The in-between has to be up to you, because God puts people in your way that you're supposed to meet on this journey. And all the things that happen to you are meant to happen to you on that journey. And if I try to influence you in any way, it becomes my Camino being put on you. And you need to find what your specific journey is on that way, and to hear the other people.
Another way to say it, I'll walk with you, but I'm not going to carry your pack. Right?
Well, yeah, that's definitely true. I've done that with Boy Scouts. I'm not doing it on the Camino. Although the packs are lighter on the Camino.
Give us a history of the Camino. Are you able to do that?
I'll give you the understanding that I have.
Okay.
And where it is. There was a priest in Spain by the name of Pelagian. I don't think it's with the heresy, but he was looking out one night and he saw 3 lights coming up from the ground in a cemetery. And there was thoughts that St. James was buried in this area. St. James was the apostle to Galicia, as it was in that time, or Gaul at that time. And so they go out and they explore these tombs and everything, and there's some writings and some markings there that suggested St. James. And so they exhumed the remains and they put them in a special place. And the king at that time in Navarre announced that there should be a cathedral built to the remains of St. James. And so that's where we get the cathedral in Santiago. And he made the first pilgrimage from his castle, kingdom, whatever, to Santiago on foot. And that's the Camino Primitivo. That's the first Camino route. And as this became more and more popular, different routes established themselves from where people were starting. You can start in Canterbury, England. There are people that start in Norway, Denmark, Ireland, Italy, southern Spain, many different places that you can start the walk. And it's very similar to what they would do with the Crusades down to Israel and to the Holy City to venerate the remains of St. James. It's an interesting story that there's one place where you can start. There's Our Lady of the Pillars Church, which is supposed to be a site where St. James was despondent about his call to Spain and didn't feel he was making headway into conversions. And Mary appeared to him and said, no, you're to stay here and you're to continue with your mission. And from that point on, his mission, his conversions grew and everything else. And there's a church built in that city for that. But that's the rudimentary things that I understand. Now, as the years, it's been going on for 1,000 years, people have been walking this route. There's become more established routes that that have come through. And it's interesting when you go through this to think back of what it was like to walk this, one, barefoot or in minimal sandals, and two, with no way markers telling you where to go and turn, and not the established towns and places to stay. What those people went through on that journey, it must have been very, very important to them.
Dr. Mike Parker here in the cafe with us. We're talking about the Camino. What's the symbolism of the seashell?
It's what they used to baptize.
Okay.
Oh, so they would take the water in the seashell and they would baptize people. But it was something that St. James carried.
And the seashell is a marker along the way, right?
Right. The conch shell.
And the symbol of St. James.
Yeah, it's the symbol of St. James, and it's that's my belief of why he carried it. He carries a gourd for water and a walking staff that looks like the staff of a bishop. But the seashell is very prominent everywhere you go. So it's on all the markers that you see. The most common thing you'll see is the cement post with the seashell on it in a yellow area. But in some of the cities, they don't have those, so you'll see medallions in the sidewalk, and they come about every 30 or 40 yards, so you know you're going the right way. Or you'll look up on a building, and there'll be a yellow arrow painted on the building telling you which way to go. And of course, there's tons of people in that area that tell you you're going the wrong way. Going out of Pamplona, I was I made 3 wrong turns, and every time I was quickly corrected.
Well, that's
people
good.
Because
you can't get lost on the Camino.
Can't get lost. Well, you can.
Yes.
But that's what's very interesting. You mentioned that, Kitty, is when you're walking and you make a wrong turn, you quickly realize you made the wrong turn. I was going into one city and we were supposed to take a way off the main route to go a different route that was along the river. And I kept looking for it. And I found this way that went off to the right. And I started walking and I got about 500 yards down the road. And I said, this is not right. There's no backpacks in front of me. There's no shells anywhere. There's no yellow areas anywhere. I quickly turned around. I looked at my little app on the phone to see where I was, and I was off the trail.
And just that one poor soul that was following you because they thought you knew the way.
You knew where you were going.
Exactly. Well, there was another person that I met on the Camino who made the same mistake. She went a little bit further. She went about a mile down the road before she realized it. So that adds a little time to your day if you make those kind of mistakes. But it's sort of like life. We get off our way, and there's something there that tells you you're on the wrong way. Or there's somebody there to tell you to come back onto the way. And it's very similar to that.
I wonder why St. James, I'm trying to think, there's no apostle whose relics are venerated in quite the same way, right? With paths
maybe St. Peter.
St. Peter, but do people walk? Is it like a quest that is common among Christians and non-Christians to walk, to venerate the relics of St. Peter?
No, I don't know that there is. I know there's an Italian Camino. It's kind of the way of St. Francis that ends in Rome, but you're not going to St. Peter's for that.
Right.
Why
St. James?
I think it has to do with the local culture. The fact that the king actually made this pilgrimage and encouraged his people to make this similar pilgrimage to venerate that of St. James. And then, it became more of that regional area of France and Spain and Navarre and that called people to make these things as they found out about it. And it was within a walkable distance for many, rather than going to Israel, to the Holy Land. These people could go from France or England or southern Spain to venerate these relics of somebody who was a follower of Jesus Christ from the beginning, right?
And Dr. Parker, I want to talk about getting outside of your comfort zone, which was one of the points that so we've talked about listening to the call. Now, you started this journey in the Pyrenees, right? Or going into the Pyrenees. That's a tough place to start. Talk about getting out of your comfort zone pretty quickly.
Yeah. As much training as you do, and this can get back to what we're going to talk about later, as much training as you want to do before the end, before you begin, it's never enough. And
oh no,
it's enough to get you started.
I don't think that's on any of the brochures.
No. It's enough to get you started. But your first day there, you're sitting down to dinner with people from all around the world. You don't know what language they speak, where they're from, what they're doing, and you've got to sit down and have a conversation with these people. You're at a communal table eating a communal meal, and you've got to ask for the bowl in some way or another, right? And so, I think you start off with some apprehension that you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, and some fear of what you're going to be facing the next day. And you're sleeping in a room with other people, and it's a mixed room. So that's really can be uncomfortable for some people. And then quickly, the next day, as you're walking, you're going to meet somebody that you're going to talk to, and you're going to find out where they're from and what they're doing and why they're there, and getting along the way. And so you quickly understand, that, okay, if I'm going to be a part of this, I've got to get outside of myself and be willing to open myself to other people. So my first day, I went halfway up the mountains, and I stayed in a place that had been converted from an old shepherd's house in Borda, which is a town there. And I'm sitting around a communal meal with everybody, and the first question they say is, "Tell us why you're here." And so you've got to open your soul or your personal reason for being there to 15 or 16 other people that were there.
That sounds awful.
Well, it can be, it can be overwhelming, but it's the first person to start that really breaks that ice.
Yeah.
Right.
And there were a lot of people who said to me afterwards, Mike, what you said there, really, it sounded like it came from your heart. And those people wanted to walk with me to talk about things after that. And one of them became a very good friend of mine on the Camino. And we walked quite a bit together. But you have to be willing to be open to other people and to hear their stories, and to meet people that you don't think that you would normally associate with, and to be able to listen to them, to have them listen to you, and to find a shared commonality within all of that brings you together. We never really understood why we came together as what we call a Camino family. There ended up being about 10 or 12 people that we walked with quite frequently. But you find that there's something shared between all of you. And it's being willing to take those chances, to take those risks and everything else that really does that.
Dr. Mike Parker with us here in the St. Gabriel Café. We're talking about his experience on the Camino de Santiago. When we come back, we want to talk about walking with an open heart, Mike, and then also trusting in God's providence. So friends, stay with us.
My Jesus, before you ascended into heaven, you prayed that we would all be one, as you and your Father are one. But today, Lord, we seem more divided than ever. We are divided over political beliefs, gender, religion, ethnicity, color, and economic status. It is a division that cuts deeply, even through our closest relationships. You have warned us, Lord, that a house divided against itself cannot stand. Help me to remember that you are the cornerstone of this house, that your precepts, not ours, are the path to everlasting joy. Empower me with your grace to be an agent of healing and a proclaimer of truth and hope to this troubled world, one heart at a time. Armed with your sacred word, the sacraments, and the wisdom of the saints, you have given me everything I need to make a difference. You have created me for such a time as this, Lord, and I am ready to do your will. Amen.
My family left the church because of a very negative experience with a specific priest, and that took my whole family away from going to church for a long period of time. There were other Catholic churches, and there were great Catholic churches and great priests, but we stopped because of that one specific instance. And in a way, I was cheated out a big part of my journey in my life because we weren't in the church. In life, it seems like we're always enslaved to something. And I think that's basically what our culture is all about right now, is we are enslaved to power or to greed or to wealth or to lust. But there's a true freedom to not be enslaved, but to attach ourselves to God and to be free. My involvement in the church, my relationship with God is who I am. It's what gives me my identity. Thank God I'm home.
If you've been away from the Catholic Church for whatever reason, we invite you to take another look. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org today.
Welcome back to the St. Gabriel Café. I'm Dave Osborne.
And I'm Katie Wyatt, and we would just like to say good morning to all of our listeners, especially those who are tuning in on FM 88.3 in Scioto County and FM 106.7 in Athens. We don't have a bumper magnet for you guys, but we love you very much. We're grateful for your support. We're grateful that you are listening. We just want to let you know that we know you're out there.
Coming up at 9 o'clock, Teresa Tomeo on Catholic Connection. She'll be joined by Joan Lewis from Rome this morning. And then she'll also be talking about Shrines and Wonders on Shrines and Wonders Wednesday. So that's with Teresa Tomeo immediately after the cafe. So, Mike, let's talk about walking with an open heart. What does that mean to you?
Well, I had the same question. This came to me. I was in, I can't remember what city it was, but it was very early on, and I met a woman who was from Denmark, and she was over there volunteering, and she was a massage therapist, and she provided foot massages there in this town called Los Arcos, and she,
what a great side hustle.
I know.
Well, over there, they make good jack.
Yes.
They make good money. But she was talking to me, and it was a day where it was kind of cloudy. We didn't know if it was going to rain or not or anything like that. And she's just like, you just need to walk and be open your heart to the Camino. And so I started discerning that on my walk. What does it mean to walk with an open heart? And so I sent the message ahead to my priest friend that I'd met before, and he sent me back. I think it was something from St. Paul, in his letters. I can't remember which one or what it was, but if you're walking with a spirit of generosity, if you're walking with a spirit of helping other people, if you're walking in the spirit of love, if you're walking with these certain things within that saying, and my mind draws a blank, you're walking with an open heart. And it really is, that's truly the spirit of everybody together coming on this, is that you're there with a shared mission. Okay. You have your personal goals of what you're there for and what you want to accomplish and what you hope to achieve. But along the way, everybody you meet becomes somebody you want to see finish that journey with you. And you'll if you meet somebody along the side of the road, you'll stop and say, are you okay? Are you having problems with blisters? Can I help you with this or with that? Listening to somebody's story. And if they ask you for advice, offering it. Offering up something that you have to somebody else because they need it.
How did somebody help you, Mike? We're talking to Mike Parker.
Yeah, that started from before I even got started.
Yeah.
My journeys in France were very much dependent on the train system. And even starting out, getting there, it's funny. I get a text message on my way to Lourdes that my train the next day had been canceled from Paris to Lourdes. And so I'm struggling to find a train to get there. I get the last train. It takes me and rather than being there in 4 hours, I get there in 8 hours. But leaving Lourdes, where we were beforehand, I met a priest through a mutual friend who was going to the same starting point, staying in the same albergue that I was staying in, and was going to the same route and everything. And we talked about meeting at the train station and everything else. Well, I kept getting text messages all throughout the day. Hey, our train from here to here has been canceled. We need to do this and this. And then it was, all of our trains have been canceled.
Oh, gee.
And he had arranged for the choir director of Lourdes to give us a ride to another town so that we could get a bus to get to another train station that was open and would take us into our city. So he really was my first, what we call Camino angel. And so, it was even before I got on the route that people were starting to help me out. There was another time when I was in Lyon, very big city, and I was up by the cathedral. I was staying down out of the old city, and I thought I knew where I was and how I could get back to my place where I was staying, but my phone died. So I had no maps to get me there. So I start walking down the route I thought I was supposed to go. I got really lost, and I did not feel comfortable. So I go back up to the cathedral. I find a woman who I'd walked with before. She had a phone charger. She let me charge my phone to 10% so I could get back to my hotel, or I was sleeping on the streets of Lyon that night. I was not going to make it back. Lots of little things like that happen.
Mike Parker with us here in the cafe. Are you the type of person, is it easy for you to ask for help, or was this an example of getting outside of your comfort zone?
I'm not a person who typically asks for help a lot. I'm very much a let's do it myself, hard driven. I know I can figure this out. I'm just going to do it. I'm also not the kind of person that just initially goes out and just starts talking to people, and trying to get to know them. That was something that was very difficult for me to just start talking with people. I feel very uncomfortable with that sometimes. But, I found it was more people asking me for help than necessarily me needing help. And I think part of that, one is preparation, but two, just allowing things to happen. And if it was happening, it was meant to be. I didn't ever really find myself in a point of, physical duress or danger or anything like that. But getting lost, that was pretty scary, especially in a big city like Lyon, and in a city where I don't speak the language and there's a lot of people. And then just finding that one person who you haven't seen for 5 or 7 days at a place in a huge city that has something you need.
Dr. Mike Parker joining us in the St. Gabriel Café this morning. He recently returned from a pilgrimage on the Camino. You shared with us that there's a quote that you hear often along the way, the Camino provides. Right. Sounds like this is what you're talking about. Right. Is that what that means?
It is. And I say the Camino provides is just another way for saying trusting in God's providence.
Sure. But sometimes you're going to be the catalyst for the provision, it sounds like.
Yeah,
and sometimes other people are.
Yeah, you're used in many different ways through God's providence on the Camino, but God also provides for you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is with relation to where am I going to stay the next day. One of the problems on the Camino now is there's a lot of Booking.com is involved with a lot of the places now, and there's a lot of tour companies that are now taking people on the Camino. And so they're booking a lot of places, and we got rumors that it was difficult to find places here, there, everywhere else. And so, I'd be in a place saying, well, I don't know where I'm staying. I only booked the first 7 days out.
Hang on.
Yeah. After that,
you don't know every night where you're going to stay before you. Oh, dear.
You may not know. But you know what? It's there's always a municipal, which is usually owned by the city, that's going to accept you or something like that. But a lot of towns I walked into, the first place I stopped, I say, hey, do you have a bed? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did.
Or maybe there was no room at the inn.
And you went down to the next inn. Your search continued. But you always found a place. And a lot of people, we use WhatsApp over there. It's a very common thing to use over there. And I would just send a message to the various different places. Do you have a place for me tomorrow night? And the first person that said yes, that's where I went. I was also, so about halfway through, I had gotten ahead of schedule because I was helping a friend out in his walk. And I started saying goodbye to everybody that I had met because they were going to get way ahead of me. And I had 2 very short days the next day. One was only, I think, 6 miles. The next one was 10. That sounds long, but it's very short on the Camino. And so I got to my first destination. It was only 10:30 in the morning. And I started late that morning. I started at 8:30. And I said, I can't stop. I just felt like I needed to walk further. And so in trusting in providence, I said, okay, if they have a place for me to stay in this city, I'll go. If they don't, I'll just stay here. Texted them. They had a place for me to stay. I walked on, got up there. All my friends were staying in that same town, but I didn't let them know I was there, because the other thing that you do that I discovered on the Camino is I didn't feel a call that I had to be with one group of people.
So when you say all my friends, are these people that went over with you, or people that you became your friends along the way?
Became my friends along the Camino, right. There was a woman that I met. She stayed in the first albergue I stayed at. We finished on the same day. There was a man I met from Florida. We sat next to each other in the credentials office in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port to get our passport, as they say. We finished on the same day, and we saw each other quite a bit along the way. So we had a group that stayed in the first albergue that night that kind of became close and stayed together throughout the trip. And so we became very good friends.
What does albergue mean?
Albergue is a Spanish word. I would call it a hostel.
Okay.
There are places where there's a lot of beds,
So, Dr. Parker, let's talk about the preparation that goes into making this trip. There might be some of our listeners now who are interested. Oh, I think but give us the cold hard facts. What does it take to, you're not just going to get on a plane tomorrow and go walk the Camino, I assume.
Yeah. I mean, you can get as detailed and involved as you want. The 2 most important things are your feet and your backpack. You've got to have your feet prepared, and you've got to have a backpack that you're going to feel comfortable with, and it's going to be able to carry the essentials of what you're going to need on the trip. and then getting out and walking before you leave. Don't just think that you can do like Martin Sheen in The Way, get over there and start walking. The one thing they don't show Martin Sheen getting is blisters. Well, that happens when you do that. There was a man from Australia that I met who just started walking 2 weeks beforehand, and he was in bad straits. You've got to get out and do some type of training beforehand, whether it's walking or whatever. And it doesn't have to be hills. It doesn't have to be this. Just get out and walk and get that endurance ready.
Is that about like breaking your shoes in, or is that about
breaking your shoes in? Yeah, and you've got to find the right shoes. That was probably my greatest liberation, was what shoes am I going to wear? And fortunately, I worked through a company that I could take any shoes back that I got that I didn't like and get them fully returned. And I probably went through 7 pairs of shoes before I found the right ones.
And this was in your, obviously in your conditioning before the trip. And just the way the shoes feel, you'll get a feel for it. But you've got to find the right shoes for you, and you've got to break them in before you leave. And I think Father Blau would agree with that. And then your backpack, you want to be able to carry the essentials that you need, but you've really got to pare it down even before you leave to what's essential.
When you got out there, Mike, were you at all surprised by how little you actually needed to carry, or did you have a sense you didn't have enough room to carry what you needed?
No, I felt very comfortable in what I had taken. And in fact, I packed too much. Mainly because I was carrying a CPAP machine, which I never needed and I couldn't use because the plugs were too far away from the bed. But so I shipped, and because it was warmer, I didn't need my heavier jacket, and there were some other things that I brought along that were just taking down weight. And so I shipped those ahead to the end. And that's part of the story that attracted me to the Camino, is that people start leaving stuff along the way. I forgot some stuff at the albergues and that kind of stuff along the way, but is how little you really need in life to survive, and you were never uncomfortable, and you never didn't have what you wanted, and you could always get what you needed, whether it was medications or tape or this or that along the way. It's not like you're out in the middle of nowhere. For a while you are, but you'll find a place. And I felt very well prepared. One of my friends was down to the ounce. He was weighing everything. I weighed everything and had an idea, but I packed it and then I unpacked it. And then I decided in the end, I Googled everything that I thought I might need to take. And I said, can I buy this in Spain? And it would come back, yes, you can. It's not coming with me. Yeah. It's not coming with me. Yeah. If I need it, I'll buy it there. And so I felt very comfortable, but you've got to get through the packing lists and everything.
So we only have about 5 minutes left, Dr. Mike Parker, and we are enjoying this conversation with you about your recent pilgrimage on the Camino. Can you share with us can you just not distill it down, but can you summarize for us the greatest takeaway for you? What did you bring home with you that will be lasting?
I mean, there's a lot of things. One of the questions we asked each other before we left is, what are the 3 things you want to continue to do when you get home? For me, it was journaling, getting up and getting the walk in early. And that's a symbol for getting up and do what's essential early in the day, such as your prayers, your exercise, reading, whatever it is you need to do, get that done early. The third was the community. Maintaining every day when we finished. You stopped, you took a shower, you got your laundry done, and then you waited.
And then you waited? Did you?
You waited because in Spain, everything closes from 4 to 7. So you either ate beforehand or you ate after. So you would come together around a communal table with everybody, and you would have your drinks for the day and some snacks and that kind of stuff. For me, it was a bag of M&M peanuts.
Every day you ate M&M
not
peanuts?
Every day, but
I was going to say, this is sounding better and better.
Yeah. That was my luxury. And there's people that can't look at a bag of M&M peanuts without thinking about me anymore. But it's that sense of community. But deep inside, deeper than that, for me, it was, I'm okay being alone. A lot of times I was uncomfortable in my own skin, in my head, with the thoughts that I had and who I was and what I thought I was and everything else. But it was finding a deeper sense of self-love for myself, and being able to be alone and not feel abandoned or to feel unloved or unwanted or anything else like that. I could walk for hours by myself and be comfortable with God and be comfortable with who I was as a person and where I was going. And that brings a sense of calm for me. I think I've been much calmer since I got home. The Camino is kind of like, and I'll use this in the term of my profession as a OBGYN, it's like pregnancy. The first part of the journey is very hard, where you're getting sick, you're getting uncomfortable, you're going through everything. The second part is kind of like, okay, I got my sea legs underneath me. I'm not as sore anymore. I can walk longer distances. My shape is okay. I'm feeling more comfortable. And in the end, you're struggling again through different parts. But the struggle then is leaving. What's going to happen to me at the end? That anticipation of finishing. And then you get there and it's like you're reborn. You've come out of yourself, you're different, but you really don't know what the Camino provides until you get home. And you may not know it for several months. You may not know what the effect the Camino has had on you for several months. And I'm still discovering, how the Camino has affected me.
I'm just going back to our opening reading from the Song of Songs today. After hearing your story, Dr. Parker, the song, Seeking Him Whom My Heart Loves, it just resonates so differently. That's what the Camino is. Seeking Him whom your heart loves.
It is.
Sounds like you found a different understanding of that relationship with the Lord throughout the process.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most of it. I wouldn't say that my prayer life is better or my scriptural reading is better or anything else like that, but it goes back to the great commandment: love God, love your neighbor. But in between there is love yourself as your neighbor, or love your neighbor as yourself. So you have to learn to love yourself. And so part of that was learning to love myself again, so that I can love others the way I want to love them. And so for me, that was the greatest part. The greatest thing that I got out of this was that I'm okay, and I deserve certain things, but that I don't have to look outside of myself to find those. I've got a relationship with Jesus Christ where all of those things are present.
Thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty and your openness. I know that blessed our listeners tremendously today.
Thank you for having me on today. It's great to sit in the chair again.
Always a blast. And no, I think, I don't know. We'll see if the Camino's in.
See if it's calling you.
In my future. Really appreciate you sharing, Mike.
Oh, thanks for having me on again. Yeah. And, if anybody's interested, they usually know where to find me.
Dr. Mike Parker. Coming up tomorrow, we have Father Steve DeSantos. He's going to be talking about the devotion to the precious blood. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
God love you all. We'll see you tomorrow.